any other work, because you would have exerted all your strength in cutting the tree. Whereas if you would strike the tree 5 times or 10 times a day, and you take it each day, you strike the tree 10 times, you would take a long time, but you would do something very productive, something very useful. You will be doing all the other work you have to do. You are not exhausted because you are doing something at a pace that you are able to do. Now, sometimes our family life could be something like that. We need to do every day. Being in a family, we need to be at it every day, but we need to find our pace of doing things so that we are not exhausted by the end of the day. I hope I'm getting through to you what I'm saying. If you try to do all these changes within a day, maybe you will find yourself exhausted. But if you are at it and you are doing it at a pace that you are comfortable with, maybe you will achieve a greater target by end of 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. There'll be such a great amount of work done because you are at it. So first of all, let me put the slides that I have prepared. Yeah. So parenting in a single parent family, and I think the advertisement says creating a positive atmosphere at home. Right. So I would like to take this time to describe some of the things that we need in a family. First, I would like to call the home ethos. Now, home ethos is the belief system, the attitudes, the thinking patterns that we need to have in a home. Now, there is no right and there is no wrong. There is no good, there is no bad. When it comes to home ethos, it is all about the goal you want to achieve in your family. Now, don't get me wrong. In the bygone days, there was right and wrong. So, in the bygone days, this was black and this was white. But now in the current scenario, we need to understand what is the result we want from the family. If we want this kind of result, then we need to have a proper home ethos or the proper atmosphere for home. Now, I'm a doctor and I work with these days I'm doing some work with the microbiology. And you know that if you put an organism or bacteria into a culture media, it grows. Now, provided the wrong culture media, the bacteria will not grow. In the same way, we need to understand what we need from the family and what is our goal we want to achieve in the family. Now, for each one, that goal may be different. What you call family may not, the result I want may not be the result what you want. But nevertheless, the results you would get would depend very much on the home ethos. If your family is, now this is some of the values that I have for my family: to be supportive, to have fun, learn to relate, instill values. Now I'm a medical doctor and a life coach as well as I'm a pastor. So values would be the religious values that I want to inculcate in my kids. So all these things are some of the values that I have. Now these may not be the values you want. I don't know. But it is good for us to understand what are the values that we really need from family. Because according to your need and according to your goal would be the home ethos. It is understood, I think, that whether it is whether it is supporting or whether it is not supporting, your home ethos determines the nature and the upbringing of your kids. Now, it is something like this. If you want to train someone in a new behavior, it is a bad idea to introduce the new behavior in an environment where that new behavior is not supported. Sooner or later, you will find that new behavior cannot be carried out because the atmosphere around the home or in the home is not supporting that behavior. So it is very valuable for us to understand what kind of a home ethos do we want. Now, the home ethos creates the atmosphere for, let me check, for inspiration. Your home ethos creates the atmosphere for inspiration. It may be for good or for evil. If your kids are not behaving well, maybe there is something that you need to change in the home ethos. It gives inspiration for new formed habits to be maintained. I just discussed this, that if you want a good habit to be maintained, you need a proper home ethos, ethos that will support that. Increase participation and involvement. When the home ethos is everybody is doing the same thing, geared for the same thing, you will find that all the family members will unite and participate to get involved in that. Fourthly, it improves the outcome of change. Where whatever change that you need, the home ethos is very important. Now, these are some of the things that some of the features, I would say, of a disturbed family. Well, I don't call a dysfunctional family. I would say a disturbed family. It would be like addictions, especially when the parents are addicted, maybe to smoking, alcohol, and even pornography. There are so many addictions that people go through. Some are addicted to worrying, though it may be a silent addiction. Nevertheless, it is an addiction. Some people can't wait without worrying. Perfectionism. Perfectionism is something that you demand 100% perfect outcomes from your kids. Especially the parents want perfectionism. To be frank, only God is perfect. So when we put if we are prone to perfectionism, it puts a huge burden on the kids because it is something that they can't deliver at the end of the day. Abuse or neglect. These are some of the things that abuse is harm that is done to them, and neglect is harm done without providing the correct support. Conditional love, which means conditional love is you do this and I will give you this. And if you continue on the conditional love, you will find the kids getting used to work and reward. It is not unconditional love, but it is work and reward. At some point of the day, this is going to bust because they will say the reward is not that great. So that means I don't have to do this. So there are pros and cons in the conditional love. On the short term, it may look great. So if you study, I will give you extra time on TV. Well, on the short term, it is good, but on the long run, it is bad. Then lack of boundaries, lack of intimacy, and poor communication. So these are some of the things about features of a disturbed family. Now, let me go to the next slide. Now, there are the ultimate needs of any child. I suppose these are some of the needs that even adults need. That is, they have, I want you to imagine that there are two tanks, the love tank and the power tank. Okay, the love tank and the power tank, because these are the two drives that a child would have in any matter. Now, I would like to elaborate a little bit on this. If the child's love tank is not full, then there would be problems in the child wanting to get love from other sources. From usually when a child's love tank is empty, they will try to fill the void with the wrong stuff. And especially this becomes a problem when they reach puberty and when they are in their teens. They will fill themselves with lust, with pornography, with so many addictions. They want to feel loved. So if the love tank is empty, usually it is very easy to fill a love tank when they are kids. But when they grow older, if the love tank is empty, the child will feel a void. So at the end of the day, it is up to us parents to help them to fill their love tanks. Every child, whether young or old, will have a love tank. And on the other hand is the power tank. Now we all have a free will. Every child has a free will, and that free will means the child needs to feel powerful. Now the problem with the power tank is that if the child feels a lack of power, the child will try to feel power in certain areas of their life. Now, I suppose when the kids are small, the areas that they have power over would be the time when they are eating, when they are sleeping, and when they are toileting. That's the time that they have power, right? When the kids are very small. Now, isn't it true that that is the most difficult thing to do sometimes, to get a child to sleep, to get a child to eat, and get a child to go to the toilet when he needs to, as a routine? Because that is the time that they have power over. So for us to help them to feel their identity and power, there has to be certain areas where they need to feel powerful. If they don't feel powerful, they may try to fill that power tank in certain areas in illegitimate ways. Like if they come to class, they may disrupt the class. They may be a nuisance to the teacher, all because they want some power exerted to know that they are powerful. Now, in itself, it's not wrong, but a good home ethos would help to fill the love tank as well as fill the power tank. A good home ethos would address both of these issues. Let's go to the next slide. Right. Now, the next thing is that there is a problem when a child is not being filled. When the child is not properly fed with the power and the love they need, the end stage is where they go into a condition called the passive-aggressive child. Now, this is the subconscious determination to do exactly opposite of what an authority figure wants. Okay, this is their pleasure, and their drive is to do exactly opposite. They don't fight, they may not grumble, but they don't do what is said, but they will do exactly opposite what the authority figures wants. Passive-aggressive behavior does not make sense. If you ask them, why are you doing it? Don't you understand it is wrong? Well, they may say, well, I understand it is wrong, but it is not something that makes sense. The sole purpose is to upset the authority figure, and ultimately those decisions defeat the person showing this passive-aggressive child. Now, I suppose, though this is the end stage, sometimes it can be a bit normal for a teenager to show signs of passive-aggressiveness. But it is for us parents to know if a child is going that way, to soon find out how to fill the love tank and how to fill the power tank. You can avoid children going into that. Now, now this aggressive, passive-aggressive child is a child who wants to do exactly opposite what the authority figure wants. So now, nowadays, the temptations are great. They can go into sexual immorality. They can go into gambling. They can go into different behaviors, heroin, drugs, all because they want to do exactly the opposite of what the authority figures do. Now, my prayer and my concern is that we should not allow them to go that way, and we should stop this, at least avert them from going into a full-blown passive-aggressive child. Right. Now, I want to discuss this topic. Now only I'm coming to the topic of how to build the correct atmosphere. I want to give you 3 building blocks. That is building the home ethos, bonding, and boosting the willpower. Because we need, now I just gave a description about what home ethos is. And the home ethos I described. Bonding is the ability to bond with the child so that the child feels love. Now, one thing we know that we all love our kids. Now, it is usual for parents to love the kids, but sometimes the children does not feel love. Though we love, the children does not feel that they are loved. So this is why bonding techniques are essential, and we need to know what bonding techniques are. And the other thing is boosting the willpower. Now, the willpower is the ability of the child to carry on with something when they have negative emotions coming up in themselves. So let's go on. Now, building the home ethos have some things that we have. There are some routines that needs to be attended to. Now, home ethos is not something that will be built overnight. It needs time, it needs effort, it needs constant working to create a home ethos. I just made a reference before how a home ethos will help, or either it will destroy, or how the behaviors are encouraged or the behaviors are discouraged because of the home ethos. Now, there are some things that you can do to build a good home ethos. Now, one thing would be having family dinners together. Having family dinner together. Now, now I come from a family where we had always family dinners together, and even now we have family dinners together, and we know the blessing of it. But when we coach, I get to know the outside world. Well, sometimes people don't have family dinners together. The father comes at one time, eats, the children eats on their own, the mother eats on her own time. So there are no family dinners sometimes. So this is something that we really need to concentrate, because family dinner will bring the children and the whole family together. So it is very vital, if you want to build a good home ethos, that you have family dinners together. Now, it has been found by research that families who habitually eat dinner together seem to raise children with better homework skills, higher grades, greater emotional control, and more confidence. Now, I suppose these are all what you dream of being a parent, having raised children with better homework skills and higher grades, greater emotional control, and more confidence. Now, these are all what we need, but it is surprising to know that all these are a result of the family meeting together. Now, having said that, we all have dinner at night. Now, I'm sure we all have dinner. So the big deal about this is that if we can set apart the time to have dinner and have a joint time, this problem is solved on its own. So having a family dinner need not be a thing that we need to think hard how to have. It is all about having a time and scheduling your time to have dinner at the same time. And as a result, you will have a kid that is good in his homework, who gets better grades, and who has confidence. Now, the other skill is making the bed in the morning. Well, sometimes you may argue and say, well, the bed will be, if you even make the bed in the morning, in a few minutes' time, it will go back to the same state that it was. Yet, they have found that some habits, if you can add this to your routine and your children's routine, that could enable, it says, bed makers are also more likely to like their jobs, own a home, exercise regularly, and feel well rested. Now, this is all research. These are not my thinking. This is research. So this is why it is important for us to have these tools to create a better ethos. Then having a regular morning, which means there has to be a morning routine for your kids as well as for yourself. They have found that the way we organize, having a regular morning will help to organize our thoughts and work routines, an enormous impact on health, productivity, financial security, and happiness. Now, now you may ask me, how do you know that this happens? This is not my thoughts, but this is only research. And the fourth one, which we will go a little further reading together, because reading together has a domino effect, because it gives certain aspects that nothing else will give. So if you want a good home ethos, it is something that you have to do some 4 things that you could do to improve your home ethos. Now, thinking about a good home ethos would not create a good home ethos. Just discussing about a home ethos would not give you a good home ethos. But if you can settle to do these 4 things, having your family dinner together, making the bed in the morning, having a regular morning, that means a routine, reading together, maybe 10 minutes or 15 minutes. All this, if you put together, you will take at least, well, eating together, anyway you eat, it will take another 30 minutes more, but it will give you a domino effect of a better home ethos. Right. So let's go on. Let's go on to why reading is frustrating now, because reading is such an important thing. Let me look at my notes. Reading is something that is very important. When you read, not only does your vocabulary and thinking pattern improves, but the child's visual imagery is increased by reading. Now, this is all very needed because the child begins to develop the visual and the vocabulary at the same time. And they have found out, this is also research, that what improves your home ethos is not simply reading, because nowadays you get the audiobooks. And if you switch on the audiobook, it will read for you and the child will only have to listen. Now, that is not a substitute. Audiobook is not a substitute, because what happens is when you read together, you begin to develop communications around the topic that you're reading. And it serves in different ways. Well, have you ever found that when you are at home, that your mind is grooved to different things? Your thinking pattern is the same. You tend to gravitate on the same thoughts, the same words, the same patterns. Reading helps us to come out of that groove. When you read, not only your vocabulary increases, but your thinking increases. And you begin to communicate with each other on the topic that you just read. So it serves in a greater way because you begin to think beyond your normal thinking pattern, as well as it improves the child in the academics. Now, these are some of the things that why reading is frustrating to a child. Now, I'm sure you would have tried or encouraged your kids to read. Now, there are common things that why reading is frustrating. It is a new thing and the child has not experienced it before. So what happens is, the positive thing of this would be, if the child has experience, the child will not consider reading a frustrating thing. Everything that supports, everything that is a new behavior would need support. At first, even the best behavior could be frustrating. Your child feels reading is a chore because the child is not used to, or the child has difficulty in reading. Now, this is why it is good for the parent to read and the child listens, or the child reads and the parent listens, reading together. That will help the child's difficulty in reading out. And your child thinks reading is boring. It is something that the child anticipates. So this is why we need to break all that. The child hasn't found the right book yet. If the book is not the right book, yes, that could be again boring. So you need to find out what are the interests of the child. Right. So I think the question time would be a little further. Are we to go ahead with this, or do we need to discuss any questions at this moment, Master Kendall? What do you say?
How long more have you got with your presentation, Doctor?
Well, I have the bonding, and these are short segments, bonding as well as improving the willpower.
Okay, so let's complete your session and then we'll break into groups.
Okay. Right. So we'll come to the next item about bonding. Well, this focuses mainly on the love tank of the child. We talked about the love tank and the power tank. So this mainly focuses on the love tank, and usually parents love the kids. And it is natural for the parents to love the kids, but the problem is sometimes the children won't understand or doesn't connect that the parents are loving them so much. Now, why is this gap? Why is this gap? Because there is a gap. There is a mismatch. Parents love so much, but the kids don't understand that the parents love them. Now, this gap is because there is a thing called the 5 languages of love. I don't know whether you have heard this before, which we will go into a little bit in detail. Your child, there are 5 languages of love, and your child will receive love according to these 5 languages. Now, till about 8 or 7 or 8, the child's love language is not fully developed. So till about 8, you need to try all the 5 languages, communicate in all the 5 languages, but maybe beyond 8 or 9, the child will gravitate into one language, predominantly one language. Right? Now, let's look at why bonding is essential. Let me go to the next step. Okay. I think this is before that. Now, children, let's look at bonding and learning, love and learning, because we are all very interested that our children learn. Now, by nature, children are avid learners. If you would look at a toddler or infant, you will find out this child is bent on learning. Now, sometimes you may call this child play, or you may call this experimenting things. But if you look at the reason why they are playing that, it's all about learning. Sometimes kids break stuff, and especially I know boys, they break stuff and try to make things. It's all part of learning. When they are able to speak, they ask thousands of questions, all part of learning. Now, by nature, by nature, kids are avid learners. They want to learn. But the problem would be, unless the parents if the child does not get the correct atmosphere, their learning ability could be halted or slackened. So what happens is, as the child grows older, their learning capacity increases, and there comes a time that the child needs to focus more on their studies. Now, this happens to a child when the child is passing grade 3 or grade 4. When the child comes to grade 3 or 4, the child needs to learn a different kind of learning, because there would be abstract thoughts, there would be phrases that communicate a deeper meaning. Up to about grade 3, they simply learn concrete stuff. They learn the tables, timetables, they learn concrete stuff. But beyond 3 and 4, the child has to take the next step in learning abstract thought. Now, this is where learning becomes difficult. Sometimes you may have found that up to grade 2 or 3, the child does well. But beyond grade 4, 5, there is a problem with learning, because the whole atmosphere, the whole emphasis on learning changes. Now, when a child's love tank is full, the child has the capacity and the energy to focus all their energies to study well. When a child's love tank is empty, the child does not have the energy to focus on the studies. So out of many reasons of how to improve your child's learning capacity, emotional love comes primarily. Emotional love is a significant thing. Right, now let's come to the 5 languages of love. I think our time is also running out. There are 5 languages of love, that is physical touch, acts of service, words of appreciation, time, and gifts. Now, these 5 languages are languages that the child understands love. Now, this is all about bonding. When the child understands love, he understands love in these 5 modes of connecting: touch, acts of service, words, time, and gifts. Now, when we as parents want to communicate love, we also communicate love in our language of love. But when the child understands love, child understands in his language of love. Now, this is why sometimes we have a discrepancy between us giving love and them not responding to the love we give, because we are not communicating in their language of love. Now, I don't think we have enough time to go deep into the language of love, but something that I would like to emphasize here is that love language has opposites. If your child's love language is touch, and you hit the child or spank the child, that would not be taken as correction, but that would be taken as unloving. I don't know whether you get what I mean. Love language has opposites. The way that child accepts love, if you turn that love language negatively, that would mean lack of love. Say you want to correct your child's homework, and the child's love language is words of appreciation. You scold the child and you hurt the child with words. That correction won't be taken as correction, but that correction would be taken as lack of love. Very important thing. So this is why we need to identify what the language of love of our child is. Very important. Because when you are correcting your child, you will not want to use the language of love, but you would use another way, another mode to correct, so that the child gets the message, my parent is loving, but I need to correct myself. If your child's language of love is touch, you would want to correct your child with words, at the same time physically touch the child, so that the child knows that the parent is loving, because she's communicating or he's communicating with the language, but you are using words to correct. Trust you understand what I just shared now. This is very important. Now, how do you recognize your child's love language? Observe how your child expresses love to you. When the child wants to love you, does the child touch, do some acts of service, tell you words, will give you time, or will you give you a gift? Observe how your child expresses love to others. Listen to what your child requests most often, and notice what your child frequently complains about. If your child frequently complains that you're not giving enough time, well, that could be that the child's love language is time. Or else, this is of course a little bit more advanced system that I'm telling you. Give the child a choice. Would you like to have a gift, or would you like to spend some time today? And if the child says, give me time, most probably your child's love language is time. Or if you can say, would you like me to give you a big hug, or can I make you a cup of milk? Acts of service and touch. If the child says, give me a hug, it could be that your child's love language is touch. It is vital for us to understand this, because when it comes to single parenting, you need to focus. You have lack of time, you have so many things on your head. You need to focus on the child's language of love and make use of it, so that you know how to express love. This is what I just told you. And okay, when you convey your child's love language negatively, it is taken as lack of love rather than correction. On the other hand, your child's love language is not set in stone, which means if your child wants touch today, that doesn't mean that in a week's time it has to be touch and not words. It could change. So these are some of the things we need to experiment and know. Right. We are coming to the last section. I don't think it will be that long. Willpower. We talked about home ethos. We discussed about bonding. And the third thing is willpower. Now, willpower is the child's ability or the person's ability to withstand negative emotions and do something useful, or do something, involve themselves in something while there are negative emotions within you. Now, child's willpower or our willpower is like a muscle, which means running builds stronger muscles. The more you use your willpower, the more stronger it gets. Nevertheless, if you run a mile, you won't be able to run another mile in 5 minutes time. You need to rest. So the same is true for willpower. If you use your willpower, then you need some time of relaxation before the child could use the willpower again. Now, this is very important when the child has a conflicting atmosphere at home. The child has to use a lot of willpower to be calm, to be quiet, and to withstand that conflicting atmosphere. And when the child comes to school, the child needs a break again to show willpower. So if the teacher wants to do some work, the child snaps easily. The whole reason is that child's willpower has been used so much in the morning to withstand the conflicting atmosphere at home. And when the child comes to school, he snaps, he's unable to exert his willpower to do his studies. So this is why we need to have a focus on willpower as well. Now the child will use the willpower to concentrate while engaged in schoolwork. Child has a lot of emotions coming his way, to look that way, to look this way, to have discussion with the friend. But the child will use the willpower to concentrate while engaged in schoolwork, to concentration while playing a sport, playing a musical instrument. And these are the factors that you can use to build your child's willpower. Now, involving your child in to play a musical instrument is a fine way of building willpower. Now, all what you need is not to make this child a Beethoven or an expert. All what you need is for the child to play 1 hour of practice, be at the instrument, because being there with the instrument builds the willpower. If your child is able to have a stronger willpower muscle, the child will be better at schoolwork, the child will be able to concentrate better because the child's willpower muscle is built up. Sports is a good way to build willpower. So exercise or playing a sport versus screen time. Now this is something that we need to be focused on, but we need to take care. Screen time is not building willpower. The ability to focus on practices builds willpower. So willpower is giving your child a sense of control. This is their power tank. We discussed about the love tank, but this is their power tank. When you feel you are in control, you are better disciplined. And give your child a protocol to follow, because when your child comes home, give them something to work on. Help them to increase their willpower. So these are some of the things that I think we need to discuss. So I think I have come and end. This is my email address. If you need to discuss anything, ask me any questions. I would prefer you emailing me rather than calling. But my number is also there if you need to call me. So Kendall.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Jehan. Okay, what we're going to do now, I'm just going to give only about 4 minutes because we have to go into another workshop webinar by 6:20 because we are having Mrs. Ivan Ekanayaka today. So I'll be breaking you all into groups. All you need to do is just click on join group. You'll be given 4 to 5 minutes. Table your questions. You'll come back to the main room after you table your questions. Within 4 minutes, try your level best, and then we will table it to Dr. Jehan. Okay, so just click on join room. Yeah, you can click on join room now. Chatura, I have made you a group leader. Just jot down the names, jot down the questions what people might have. Chatura Kulatilaka, if you can just jot down the questions people might have, please help me out. Thank you. Please join the room. Please join the room. Please join those rooms and you can table your question to the scribe in that room. Yes, join the room. A few more to join the room. Just click on join room on your device and you will go into a small room where there'll be about 15 or 20 people. Yes, join room. That's right. Just click on join room. Click on join room. Yeah, click on join room. That's right. A few more are outside. So just click on join room. If you could click on join room, you will go into those rooms. Few more, just another 20 more. If you can go into those rooms, it will help the process of you tabling your questions. Join those rooms, it will be helpful. Well, if you don't unable to join and you're highly difficult in that device, you can throw the questions to me. I will, yeah, any questions? Even in the chat room, you can use the chat room. Any questions? Anything that you want to table to Dr. Jehan? All of you have been assigned a room. You can go into those rooms. Yes, another few more, another only about 16 or 17 more, if you can join those rooms. Kasun, you need to click on join room, Kasun.
Yeah, okay, Father.
Yeah, once you click on join room, because you're leading a group, you will go into that room and then you have to take the questions from that group, Kasun. You were able to get it there?
Yes, yes.
Okay, just click on join room and then you will get into that room. So, for those who remain here, you are free to ask me any questions. I will jot it down and we can ask Dr. Jehan. Okay. We'll be closing all the rooms and they will come back here. And then Dr. Jehan will answer whatever questions you might have. everybody are coming back, Jehan. So, okay, so can I ask Sarah if you can ask any questions that people might have had? Oops.
Questions. The one is, so during this COVID period, there were, so some kids are restricted and some, the parents are, or one parent is finding, like this is a regular family with two parents and one parent is finding stuck somewhere in another country, and so they have become a single parent. And so this mother explained that they still do a lot of activities together, like what you explained, but then still kids find it lazy and not motivated to do anything. So is there any advice you can give in regard to this?
Actually, kids not having school is a major setback because that is kids need to go to school and they need to have that morning routine that should be there. Of course, one major way of getting a person motivated, even a child motivated, is to give them a sheet of paper to jot down what they have to do. This I do with my own kids as well, and give them a timetable. I get my son and daughter to make their own timetables for the day, what they are going to achieve and with the time, and they tick it off, and they want to say it's complete. So the one way of thing is that they gain a certain sense of control over themselves. They feel they are in power, they feel they are achieving, and they perform better.
Right.
The other thing is that about the digital use, whereas when the child is more on the digital screen, it has a negative effect on the child's motivation to study or to be involved in a particular thing that they have to do. Of course, it is a whole, there is a whole lot of neurology behind it, whole set of learnings that we need to discuss. Of course, it's where the child loses the ability to think time-wise. Whereas now, if we do something for half an hour, we know it is half an hour, because there is an inward clock that says I have worked for half an hour. Now, with the digital screen, that clock is impaired. That clock gets hindered. So when the child feels they are looking at the digital screen, they will say, we just begun, whereas the child has been looking at the digital screen for the past 2 hours. Because that is, so if we can limit the use of the digital screen, then you have a better chance of the child getting motivated to studies. Of course, it's a different thing altogether. I mean, there are some things related to this. Of course, when the child needs to get out of the digital screen, as I said, there should be a home ethos that will support them. Of course, if the parent is stuck in another country, and well, that's a time that we need to get the relatives joining you, the grandparents and everybody joining you to support that person.
Thank you, Dr. Jehan. Kendall, do we have time for one more question?
Well, we have another 5 minutes. So can I just go to another person and come back if we have?
Sure. All right, thank you.
Okay, so maybe Eric or Kasun, if you like to table the questions you have got in your group.
Yeah, one of the questions I think is actually from a teenager. I think someone is joined here in this group. So what it seems, but we can phrase it in such a way that the teenager gets angry and starts breaking things and wants to know what should be done, because gets frustrated at times to manage that, especially when he comes together and that kind of a scenario.
Yeah, there are two things. Each child is different. What we need to decide is whether it is a problem with love or with power. I told you about the love tank and the power tank. So we as parents would need to know the child could be doing that out of a love need or a power need. So, so depending on the situation, we need to make the child feel loved or the child to have more power. Now, if the child feels powerless, or if it is a very perfectionist type of a house that he's coming from, then we need to help the child to gain power in certain areas that can be given to him, like when he's having meals, let him have some power. When he's doing something, let him have power, or involve him in a sport that will give him a sense of power. So these are the two factors you need to consider. Is that frustration coming from a love need or a power need? So the answer is there.
Basically redirecting your power into something different to that anger, but like a sport or whatever. That's what
Exactly. Help him to redirect that power to something productive.
Right.
And if it is a love need, if it is a love need, you need to focus on the 5 languages of love.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Dr. Jehan. Kasun, was there any question in your group? Unmute yourself.
I'm sorry, due to some communication issue, I couldn't collect it.
Okay, right.
Yeah,
Chatura, is there any questions? Chatura, any questions from your group? Unmute yourself. Wait, unmute yourself.
Sorry. Yeah, right. That. Yeah, there was a question. Basically, I think it was kind of related to kids being at home as well, because specifically where this particular parent has twin boys who sometimes become very extremely uncontrollable because they're at home and not much things to do. So any tips or anything that to overcome this kind of scenario?
Yeah, so as I said, there are some basic things that you need to do, like the habits that you need to do. First thing would be to get them on a routine and a schedule for the morning. Now, I suppose these days we need to improve on that because there is no schedule, there is no school. So first thing maybe to get it into a habit to get their bed, make their bed in the morning. Then after they take a wash, get them to have a routine and a plan so that they know where to involve themselves. And I think that is the way to go. Apart from that, we need to have a discussion with the parent and the child to see, are there any frustrating points? Is there conflict in the home? Is there anything, does the child needs a break from exerting the willpower? It could be a problem with willpower, where the child has so much on him and so much to manage that the child feels frustrated. It could be that. So on a single measure, it is very difficult to say if the child is frustrated, do this, but we need to find where the cause of the frustration is. Is it power, is it love, or is it willpower, or is the child too tensed?
Okay.
I don't know whether I answered it adequately or is the answer that you wanted. But getting a morning routine would be of help.
Thank you, Dr. Jehan. Asirini, any questions from your group? Father Roshan, any questions from your group?
Asirini, you want to go ahead or shall I go ahead? Just one question. Sorry, there were 3 questions, but let me pose one to the doctor. If parents have been fighting in a conflict in front of the children and the children heard the conversation, this person would like to know how best that could be tackled later. Do we ignore it as if it never happened? Do we talk to the children about it? Doctor, over to you.
Well, if something has happened, it has happened. So you can't take the words back. So what you can do is, I think explanation is not a good thing, because then you are giving reasons why you did it. Might as well express more love to the child in the way that the child feels love. But on the other hand, what has happened, but make it a point, if you have a conflict, don't do in front of the child. The problem with conflicts is that it is a surge of emotions that come, and you are compelled, or you are pushed to do something urgent. So the best way that you can reduce this surge is, as you feel the urge to fight and have conflict, keep your mouth shut. Don't open your mouth. Do something else. You know, sometimes this happens to me at work. I get angry and I use that energy to do something productive, because anger has power in it. Do something that until that surge and that power dissipates, so that you are better able to relate, not with the force that came up within you, but with a different tone. So I suppose if you can shift your time to resolve the conflict later, that would serve, that would help you a lot.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Jehan. Asirini, I would not have time to ask you to present your question, but I will hand the time over to you to do the vote of thanks. Parents, please know college has a well-equipped counseling team that is in place, and college counselors are always available to help you and help your son. Our purpose in the counseling team at college is purely your son. And so in the process of helping your son, we want to see the best environment and best way that we can aid and support your son. So feel free to approach our counseling team at any given time. Further, we also have a number of other workshops that are scheduled. We will be putting it on Akura. Today at 6:30, we will be hosting Mrs. Ivan Ekanayaka, who will be speaking to us on the virtual world versus the real world. So that's why we need to conclude this time. So Asirini, over to you to conclude this meeting and webinar. Asirini. Okay. In her absence, okay. Dr. Jehan, thank you very much. We are extremely grateful for taking your time and coming and enlightening us and giving a larger perspective of how we manage our homes and how we handle ourselves through conflict and how we understand our children. So we thank you very, very much, and may God bless you for investing in our college, investing in our children, and investing in our parents. So thank you very much. Parents, thank you very much for being there and being part of our webinar. Take care. Have a wonderful week. You're free to join us for the next webinar, which will be hosting in the next 10 minutes. Thank you, Jehan. Thanks a lot. God bless.
Thank you.
Hi, Asirini. Something happened to your connection.
Thank you, Doctor.
Right.
Oh, right. Really? You can't unmute yourself from there. Right. Oh, sorry. I Pastor Kendall, no? I'll tell Pastor Kendall. I would.
Right. Okay, see you all, everybody. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful week. Others who are joining in, you can join in for the other webinar.